Welcome back to Just the Facts Horns, y'all. My name is Jimmy. Today we are going to do something a little bit different today. We're going to do a Texas Longhorns football team report card for the midway point through the season. Obviously, Texas has played the first 6 games, the last 6 games here on the back half of this bye week. So it was the perfect time to do a report card, kind of assess how the team's doing this year so far. Call me Professor Jimmy for today. So today we're going to talk about each position group. I will give y'all a grade of how I think each position group has played so far this year. I'm going to talk a little bit about each group, give y'all a grade, and then I'm going to even give the coaches a grade too. So Sark is under the microscope as well. And at the end, I'll give y'all my overall team grade for the year in relation to expectations, and then I will close it out by giving y'all the level of concern I have for each of the remaining games. So without further ado, we might as well just start on offense, and we might as well just start with the quarterback position, which is basically just Quinn Ewers. And I will give him an A- so far this year. He's had, I'll start off by saying this. Quinn, I think last year for him, we set the bar a little bit too high for him, not even taking into account that he was basically a freshman. Obviously, he was at Ohio State. Chester to us, not only is it his first year with us, it's his first year as a full-time starter. And I think we had the expectation that he's going to just come in right away and be a Heisman finalist and take us to a Big 12 championship and do all these great things. I am guilty of that as well. And looking back on it, it was kind of ridiculous to put those type of expectations on him because he was just so young. Obviously reclassified, so he's even younger than the typical redshirt freshman. But this year, I think we kind of were more realistic with expectations this year with Quinn, and I think he's excelling so far. I give him A-. He's had 4 really good games. The Bama game, obviously, the Baylor game, the Kansas game, and the Oklahoma game, I will all deem as pretty good to great performances by Quinn. Now, the two not even duds, but the 2 not so good games was the Rice game and the Wyoming game. Those were the 2 games that he didn't look that great in, which is weird because those are like the 2 worst opponents on the schedule. Only 52% completion percentage against Wyoming and wasn't that great against Rice, took a lot of sacks. But over his last 3 games, he's been completing over 70% of his passes. Now, with Quinn, at the tail end of last year, he was wildly inefficient, especially to Xavier Worthy. More on that in a minute. This year, I think Sark and Quinn have a better rapport. They're doing a better job together. And I think that's a product of Quinn being way more efficient this season. He's already matched his total touchdowns of last season. I think Quinn played 9 games last season, and in 6 games this season, he's already matched his total touchdown mark at 16. Why? Because he is Quintavious Ewers from here on out. He's had 5 rushing touchdowns this season. He's running a lot more third downs. He's running on goal line situations. He's running, adding a little bit of a different dynamic to the team, and I love it. I'm here for it. He's not going to be a Sam Ehlinger for us and have 15 rushing touchdowns in a season, but I think if he can get a couple more throughout the season, that'd be great, man. Open up that part of the game for us because, as we know, we're so bad in short yardage, and I think the quarterback run game can really help out in that department. The thing with Quinn this year, like I mentioned, he hasn't been out of rhythm too much this year. I really commend him for the Oklahoma game despite the horrible start because he did come back and only missed pretty much 4 throws in 3.5 quarters. He only missed 4 throws. Helped us back and put us in a position to win. Now, that's all you want in your quarterback is for him to put you in a position to win the game. That's all you want as a quarterback, from a quarterback. And the next step for Quinn, I think, is potentially saving us from a game. We're in a tight game at TCU later on down the road, and we need Quinn to make 1 or 2 big plays. Can he make those plays? We'll see. I want to know because I think we will have a game or 2 where we're going to need that from Quinn. If we can't get that from Quinn, it's going to be hard to win out. So I just want to see what he does there. But Overall, Quinn has been great. He's a long shot for the Heisman at this point, but he has played very well for us, and that's all we need because of the playmakers that we have, from the wide receivers to the running backs. Transitioning over, Jonathan Brooks. Well, not specifically Jonathan Brooks. The running back position, I will give an A, mainly because of Jonathan Brooks. Jonathan Brooks, like I've mentioned in the last 3 to 4 videos, Jonathan Brooks has been our best player since the fourth quarter of the Alabama game. He ran out the last 7 minutes of the Bama game, willed us to that last drive, kept Bama's offense off the field. And Wyoming game had over 100. Baylor game had over 100. Kansas over 100. OU over 100. So 4 straight 100-yard games for Jonathan Brooks. And his carries are increasing now. Remember, guys, he wasn't even the starter week 1. Steve Sarkisian just so in love with Cedric Baxter for whatever reason. Baxter was starting the first 2 games of the year. And since Baxter was a little banged up since the Bama game, Brooks has been the main bell cow for us, and he has not looked back. He's just so consistent in what he does. He does his job well. And if you would have told us we'd get a back this good after losing Bijan Robinson and Roschon Johnson, I would take it 100 out of 100 times. He's, second or third in the country in rushing right now? If you would have told me that, I'd take that 100 times out of 100. As for Cedric Baxter, he is promising. He might be more talented than Jonathan Brooks. I wouldn't be surprised. He might have a better career than Jonathan Brooks moving forward. But as of right now, he's not ready, at least physically. He's been banged up this season so far as a freshman. He needs to fill out his frame a little bit more. That's expected as a freshman running back. You're going to take a lot of hits that you didn't take in high school, and guys are just as fast as you but a little bit bigger in linebackers, and he's just going to have to figure some stuff out. He has to stop shuffling his feet a little bit too much behind the line and just hit the hole hard. He's been struggling with that a little bit, but overall he hasn't been bad at all. I want to know where Jaden Blue is at because he might be our most explosive runner out of the bunch. 23 carries, 112 yards, 5 yards per carry on the season. I literally have not seen Jaden Blue since he fumbled late in the fourth quarter of the Wyoming game. He fumbled in that game late. The game was already sealed. He fumbles on the last offensive possession we had, and literally I don't think I might be mistaken. He might have been out there a couple times, made a few cameo appearances, but as far as getting meaningful snaps and carries, I really haven't seen that since the Wyoming game, and it's really weird. I think we need to throw him in there as a change of pace guy. So overall running back position, I will give an A. As far as the wide receiver position, I will give it an A-. I will give it an A- because starting off with Xavier Worthy. Now, a reason why Quinn Ewers struggled a lot last season was because he didn't have that rapport or connection with Xavier Worthy, your best wide receiver. This year, Worthy's stat line looks like 34 receptions, 453 yards, and 3 touchdowns. The thing I'm loving this year about Xavier Worthy, and Sark loves it too because he mentioned it, was the efficiency. And this is one thing last year that really drove me up the wall. What Sark didn't do last year was put Quinn and X in favorable spots to build connection with each other, to build momentum with each other, to build that efficiency. All it would be a go route, or you know what we do with Worthy? We just force feed him the ball. And that was the plan, nothing else. And teams picked up on that, and that allowed Quinn to be a hella inefficient. And obviously Quinn not hitting the deep ball too. And then whenever Quinn does hit the deep ball accurately, Worthy drops it, or they just never found a connection last year. But now with A.D. Mitchell, we don't have to throw to Worthy 15, 16, 17 times a game. We could, but we don't have to do that anymore because we have A.D. Mitchell, that second receiver on the boundary side. Against OU, Worthy had 8 receptions on 10 targets. Efficient as hell. Last year against like Iowa State and Washington in a bowl game, and against other teams, Oklahoma State, I think it was one of those games where Worthy had like 5 catches on 15 targets or something crazy. I'm like, what are we doing? What are we doing? It would take for Xavier Worthy to have 8 receptions last season, it would take at least 15 targets. But now we just did it in 10 targets last week. So that connection's being built up, and he's catching the ball. He's healthy. We saw him in the slot a little bit against Oklahoma, and I kind of like that. Him taking advantage of the mismatches inside. I like that a little bit. We might need to invest in that a little bit more. We'll see how that goes. But it really worked in the second half of OU. A reason why Worthy and Quinn are connecting a lot is because we have A.D. Mitchell, like I mentioned. He's been a godsend for us somewhat. 25 catches, 354 yards, 4 touchdowns. He's another guy we can go to in the red zone. He's another guy we can go to on deep balls. He's another guy we can go to on 50-50s. And he's just overall really good at what he does receiving the ball. Now, he doesn't block to save his life. And that's the one thing that just drives me up the wall with A.D. Mitchell, because we've been known to be a good blocking team from the wide receiver position. Worthy blocks, Jordan Whittington blocks, other guys block, Casey Kane blocked, whatever, but Marcus Washington blocked for us back then. A.D. Mitchell does not care to block, and I've noticed that. You saw in the Bama game on the J.T. Sanders play, he didn't care to block. We've thrown bubble screens his way for him to be the lead blocker, and they've gotten blown up, and a 4th and 1 we didn't get early in the season was because of him not blocking the edge, and he doesn't block, but everything else he's pretty good at. And I think the pros outweigh the cons if we allow it to. Now, Sark has to be mindful of not throwing the ball his way when he's the lead blocker and little things like that. Throw it to Whittington's side, where Whittington's going to lay out whatever little DB is in his way. Speaking of Whittington, he's been solid also. 22 catches, 257 yards, no touchdowns. But he's been reliable for us. He's been healthy the last 2 seasons, so we love to see that with Jay Witt. No other receivers has been really showing up, though. Jonte Cook hasn't really showed up. Isaiah Nair hasn't really showed up. I thought we'd see a little bit more out of those guys, but it's okay because our tight ends are pretty good as well. Speaking of the tight end position, I will give the tight end position a A. I have A- here, but I'll give them A because both of those guys have been really, really good. J.T. Sanders is the second best tight end in college football. 14 catches, 291 yards, 1 touchdown. He's a very much improved blocker. Still a little bit inconsistent here and there, but he's way more improved in the blocking game. He had that response play against Bama, like I mentioned with earlier, the one A.D. Mitchell didn't block, but J.T. Sanders got inside the 10 with that one. He had another long, or maybe 2 other long ones against Bama, and then he had a long one against Baylor. He hasn't been healthy the last 2 weeks, so that's a bummer. We might have had a little bit better chances in the red zone and whatnot if he was healthy last week, but that's neither here nor there. But he should be more involved. I feel like there's 1 week where we go to Sanders 6, 7, 8 times, and then another week where he only gets the ball twice. And it's like, okay, he's on any given week, he can be our best offensive player. And sometimes we just forget about him. It's the weirdest thing. But hopefully he just keeps on doing his thing, and he'll be drafted highly in the draft here in the near future. But Gunnar Helm as well has been really good for us. He's more of a receiving tight end, but we have him block more. And he's been a really good blocker himself. So he caught that big touchdown against OU on the 4th down. He's been doing his thing as well. Doesn't get enough credit, but he's great for us, Gunnar Helm. The offensive line play, before we get to defense, last one, offensive line. I give them, this might be my lowest grade out of anybody. I give them a B-. In good amount of games, I have not liked what I've seen from the offensive line so far. Now in OU, they responded a little bit, even though when Jake Majors came out with the injury, hopefully he returns soon. Inconsistent. How we're great against Bama, the next week we suck against Wyoming, and the week before that game against Bama, we were not good against Rice. So it's like, what are we doing? Our offensive line is playing up and down the competition. It's really weird. It looked shaky versus OU, but shout out to Robertson. He really stepped up and had some pretty good plays, snapped the ball well when he was in. I think Kelvin Banks is not as dominant as he was last year. Maybe he's still doing good, and I'm just not seeing the pancakes like I saw last year, but I don't think he's as dominant as last year. He gave up a couple of TFLs and stuff this season so far. Christian Jones has been good for us. Hayden Connor's been doing his thing, but hopefully we can stay healthy and bring him back. Devin Campbell, we moved him to right guard. He's been better at that position, I think. So hopefully offensive line finds a little bit more consistency, even with Jake Majors out. We find that consistency, get the run game going with Jonathan Brooks, and then allow Quinn to really sit back and do his thing. On to the defense. Defensive line, they get an A. Maybe an A+, maybe. Well, they didn't play too well against OU, but A is fine. T-Sweat and Byron Murphy are making them some money this season. They will make money. They're making money. Because their draft stocks have improved, especially T-Sweat. T-Sweat is just, whew. He's so good. He's so disruptive. Batted, I think, a couple balls down against OU. He's just so disruptive. Knows how to do his job. Stays in his gaps. Applies pressure. So good. T-Sweat's been so good for us. He set the tone for our defensive line all season. Byron Murphy has been great as well. Shout out to him for that touchdown catch. He's been great. Vernon Broughton and Alfred Collins, they've had crazy transformations with their bodies. They've been really good this season. I think Baron Sorrell is still pretty solid doing his thing. I think he didn't take the jump that I thought he would. Seeing that TCU game last year, he went crazy. He still looks good, but nothing jumps off to me so far this season with Sorrell. So, but we give up 3.4 yards a carry, which is not bad, but it would have been a lot lower if Dylan Gabriel didn't run for like 115 on us. So it skewed a little bit, 3.4. I think it was 2 point something the prior week, but we let Dylan Gabriel run over us, and I think that was because we didn't secure our edges. We got too far up the field on our rushes, and that allowed him to just step up and just run. We didn't funnel him anywhere or anything, and that goes on the linebackers too and this whole overall scheme, but, that made the D-line look not so good. But this year, one thing I was harping on last year was we were, I think, number 1 in the country in pressures, but we were not even top 25 in sacks. So we weren't converting those pressures into sacks. We weren't finishing the play. This year, I think we are finishing the play. We have 14 sacks so far, which is around what we had last season, but it feels like more. It feels like we're getting the quarterback on the ground more. And I'm here for it. Ethan Burke has shown me flashes as well. He's been really good in his second season. Going on to the hybrids, linebacker position overall, I give the linebackers a B+. Anthony freaking Hill, man. He's just a baller. He shows up in big games. All his sacks are in the biggest games of the season so far. 2 against Milroe, 1 against Dylan Gabriel and OU. He learns from his mistakes within the game and just gets better. There's a play against Bama. One of the biggest examples of that Bama game of our team showing growth was on a possession early in the fourth quarter. Milroe had got out of the pocket and escaped. The reason being was Anthony Hill came too far upstream off the edge. He got way too vertical off the edge, and that allowed Milroe, that opened up a pocket for Milroe to just step up and then run eventually. He got the first down on, I think that was the third down play. The next possession, or 2 possessions later in the fourth, Anthony Hill, he starts outside, comes back inside, and gets a sack on Milroe as he's trying to come through that gap and sacks him. And that was pretty much, I think, Bama's last possession of the game. So Anthony Hill learns from his mistakes in game. Yeah, he's not perfect. Yeah, he misses tackles here and there, but Um, Actually, I think he's been pretty good tackling, but overall, he's been very good for such a true freshman. I only expect him to get better. He's going to be one of the best defensive players in, I guess, the SEC as time goes on. And Jalen Ford has been a little bit more inconsistent than I thought. I will say this: he was not good against OU. He wasn't. I'll just put it out there right now. He can be a lot better this season. I think he would say that. I think Sark would say that. And I'm saying I think Jalen Ford can be better this season. He hasn't been bad by any means. Don't get me wrong about that. He's been good, but we've seen him at another level, and I haven't seen that as much this season as I think we will need moving forward. So I think he's still our leading tackler. He's still our leading tackles for loss guy. He still is tied for a lead in interceptions on the team. So it's like there's another standard I'm holding Jalen Ford to right now, and let's see if he can hit it. Now, David Benda and Jeb Bush have been solid, especially Benda. He's not that great in coverage. Exhibit A, the last play against OU, giving up the touchdown, he got lost, super lost. I think he was thinking one thing. Jaron Thompson and DBs thought another thing, and Nick Anderson wide open in the back of the end zone. But other than that, he's been playing pretty well. We've been playing him to his strengths, having him spy the quarterback a little bit in that rover position, and coming after the quarterback because he's fast as shit. We're having him blitz a lot. He's had a sack or two this season as well, and hopefully he keeps doing his thing and we continue to play him to his strengths. So the overall linebacker position, I'll give a B plus, maybe an A, maybe A minus. Oh yeah, as far as the linebackers go, I want to see Maurice Blackwell in there a little bit more. He's a little bit better in coverage than Benda. On to the DBs. Jahdae Barron is making himself some money too. He's had a lot of tackles for loss. He's super physical in the nickel spot. He's a ball hawk. Couple interceptions this year, and then a fumble recovery, I believe. He's a ball magnet, as well as Jalen Ford is. He's been really good at that position. He's really good at blowing up screen plays and play recognition. Jahdae Barron's just on top of it, and that makes him one of my favorite players on the team this season and last season too. Ryan Watts was struggling down the field coverage wise, but we did really miss him in the OU game just because of his length and his size and his physicality and experience. Hopefully he returns soon because we will need that. The younger the DB room is, the more shaky it can get. Speaking of the younger guys, Terrence Brooks has been impressive so far for me. I didn't think he was that good in 2022, but he's been impressive to me, making plays, being solid. I don't think he's given up much. I think he gave up one deep ball against Baylor, but other than that, he's been pretty good. Speaking of young guys, Derek Williams and Malik Muhammad are two guys that have been jumping off the paper, jumping off the wall. They're going crazy as true freshmen. Both of those guys should and I think will see more playing time moving forward. I think Sark kind of alluded to that last week. Both of those guys will get more snaps. And, as far as Malik Muhammad goes, he's just super strong, super physical, in the right spot most of the time. And same thing with Derek Williams. They're just physical. They're on the spot. They finish tackles. It's great to see, man. And I think those guys will get a lot more playing time moving forward. Austin Jordan has been good for us as well in certain positions. Hopefully Catalan can return from the safety spot soon. Hopefully he can return. He just reminds me of a better B.J. Foster. Hard-hitting safety, big-ass safety. Not that great in coverage. Catalan gave up that one play to Farouk, I think, but I think Catalan is a lot faster than B.J. Foster. That's the advantage. And I think he's just overall better, honestly. But hopefully he can return soon. Now, Jaron Thompson and Keaton Crawford are the ones that drop this DB rating to a B. And these are pretty much our two most experienced guys in the back end, right? Yeah, both safeties, both been here since at least 2020. I think they might have been the same class together, 2020. As far as Jaron Thompson goes, it wasn't his fault on that OU on the last play for OU. It wasn't his fault. It's Bender's fault, like I mentioned. I know as a safety, you're going to give up some stuff, and it's so hard to play that position, but he's been on the receiving end of a lot of him chasing someone down. It's just been kind of funny to see. Anytime we go up a long play, we see Jaron Thompson just running, and it's like, oh, he's chasing after him. The thing is, Jaron Thompson is not that fast, and then whenever he does hit his top speed, he probably will stumble a little bit. It's weird. He's not that fast, honestly. He's good at what he does. He's a very smart safety. He's a very good tackler when he does get a chance to tackle, but he's just not great in space. I think, teams know that. Teams have exploited that. Teams are going to, Bama did with the Jermaine Burton play in the third quarter. Teams are going to stretch that vertically. Teams are just going to. Now, Jaron Thompson's credit, he did have that interception the very next play. He was on the field against Bama. He had an interception against Wyoming. He hasn't been bad. But we know what his weaknesses are, and his weaknesses have been exposed a little bit this season. That's all that I'm saying here. And same thing for Keaton Crawford. He's faster than Jaron Thompson, but probably not always in the right spot. And he gave up he was the one that gave up the touchdown against Kansas, the deep ball. It was just weird because Jahdae Barron was kind of roaming a little bit underneath. So that left no choice but for Keaton Crawford to cover the man that's running right in front of his face. And the guy ran right in front of his face, and then Keaton realized it, and it was too late by that time. So it was weird, but overall, those guys I think can be better if we're going to get to where we want to get to, because teams will see that and exploit that, and you will see more explosive plays be given up from our defense. So I want to see that stuff cleared up. Finishing this thing off, the kickers, Bert Auburn, 12 of 17, 2 missed kicks against Kansas. I'll give Bert Auburn a B-. It could be worse. I might even give him a B. I'm not even going to lie. I'm going to give him a B. Bert Auburn, I'll give him a B. We were really hard on him after the Kansas game. He showed up in the OU game and hit some kicks. He hit the would have been game-winning field goal. He helped put us in a position to win the game. So he did his job there. I think he missed one against Baylor as well. The thing is with Bert Auburn, we're putting him in this position to kick so many times, which we shouldn't. He's kicked 17 field goals already halfway throughout the season. That's the third most in the FBS. Third most field goal attempts in the FBS. What does that mean? We're not finishing drives. That's what it means. If we're finishing drives, Bert Auburn does not need to be on the field besides a 2-yard extra point. But we're having him out here on these repeatedly 40-yard tries, 45-yard tries. And at the end of the day, these are just college kickers. It's not – Justin Tucker ain't back there right now for us. You got to score in the red zone and not have to put your kicker out there so many times. Yeah, the kicker has to do his job at the end of the day. But if the offense does their job at the end of the day, if Sark does his job at the end of the day, it makes Bert Auburn's job just that much easier, and we haven't done that so far. So we've made his job harder, but at the end of the day, you still have to complete your job. It's just kind of a tough thing there. But Bert Auburn, I give him a B. So as far as coaching goes, I will give Sark a B. Closing this thing out. I think he needs to be better in game situationally. He did say that himself. The red zone stuff is too cute, I think. Even inside the 30, like from the 30 on, even sometimes maybe even like as soon as he crosses the 50, it just gets too cute. But especially in the red zone, it just gets too cute. And he even said, maybe I'm being too cute. Yeah, you are, Sark. Run the stuff that works, man. Stop trying to experiment and do all these different things and seeing if this can work, and go to what your players do best in the red zone. Let them go out there and make plays. Let them go out there and execute. Put them in a position to where they can succeed. And Sark has not done a good enough job of that this season. Last year, I think really, honestly in his first year, I think he put us in a really good position to succeed, and our guys just didn't execute. Last year, it was a little bit of both. He sometimes put us in a good position, sometimes didn't. This year, I think he's skewing the other way. He's not putting us in favorable positions to succeed. But whenever he does, our guys execute. But I don't think he has been putting our guys in a favorable spot to succeed so far. And I think that's why we struggled in the red zone. I think that's why our offense doesn't put up the points that the yards would kind of indicate. It feels like we should be averaging 40, 45 points a game, but we only average, 30-something? We've only got to 40 once. We've been in the 30s every game. That's a plus. We're consistent. But there's another level we can get to, and I think that's all on Sark. I think he ends up being too vanilla in certain games as well. It's weird because he's too cute sometimes, and the other times he's too bland. He's too vanilla. It's weird. The Rice game, the Wyoming game, other parts of other games, he's been too vanilla, and that's why we sometimes go 3 and out with quickness, or our offense just stalls out, and it's so weird. All gas, no breaks, man. What happened? What happened to that? Can we go back to that, please? Yeah, overall, I will give the Texas Longhorns an A- for the team rating overall. I think that Sark needs to break these bad habits of our guys that are being built a little bit. Now, we're good enough to still beat most of the teams, if not all of the other teams in the Big 12, but these bad habits are still going to start to build up if we don't clean them during this bye week, and they will hurt us down the road in a game that we're in against TCU or Iowa State. Those 2 games scare me the most. Finishing this thing out at Houston, I have green, yellow, and red as far as level of concern. Green, I'm not concerned. Yellow, a little bit concerned. Red, pretty concerned. The green game I have is at Houston and versus BYU. And then I have a yellow game against Kansas State, who's going to be a physical team, whether they're good or not. That's a different story, but they're going to be physical regardless, and that might beat us up. That's why I have the TCU game right after that, a red. At TCU, knowing the Big 12 and ESPN or whatever, it's probably going to be like a 6:30 primetime game at night at TCU. That's very scary. At Iowa State, it's starting to scare me a little bit more. They're a little bit better than I thought. The quarterback I think they have is playing a little bit better. So I have that I have it in the green, honestly, but I might move that to the yellow. And then Texas Tech at the end is a yellow. Those games after Thanksgiving are always really weird for us for some reason, but that's how I have the breakdown for us in terms of level of concern of the remaining games. Y'all let me know y'all think about y'all's Texas grades. Give me a grade for each position group and why. Tell me what you agree with, disagree with. My team report card is a A-. What's yours? Before I head out, please remember to like, comment, share, subscribe if you're new. And this is Jimmy from Just the Facts Horns. Hook 'em.